Now, Patrick, you mentioned chaos, and here is further details of the chaos within the Liberal Party in the lead up to the election, with insiders revealing that major energy, housing and defence policies were worked up on the run during the campaign. And it showed the National Gas Reserve policy. Senior coalition ministers were only given about 3 hours' notice that Peter Dutton planned to unveil the gas policy. And the announcement was made before the final version of the modelling from Frontier Economics was available. That reportedly saw Liberal campaign staff chasing the final version of the report from Director Danny Price, who was found to be in New Zealand with his phone turned off. Patrick, when the report was finally made public, some 12 days after Peter Dutton's budget speech, it didn't exactly show the cost savings that were promised. I mean, this is such a monumental mess. When they needed to be bold and strong, they were weak and incoherent.
Look, I think that's right. I mean, if you go back to last year or even the year before, Peter Dutton announced a nuclear policy, which you sort of thought, well, that's whatever you think of it, that's bold, that's game-changing. Are we going to have a referendum on energy? And instead we get these sort of half-baked sort of ideas on the run, and the modelling didn't even pan out to accord with what Peter Dutton had promised. You can't be doing that. This election was not a surprise. They've had 3 years to sort of work on this and to get it right and to believe in things and to convince the electorate that this is a bold alternative. And they failed on all of those levels.
We had Senator Alex Antic on Sunday on Outsiders, and he said that some of their policies resembled mobile phone plans, where you get a special deal for 12 months. You get a cut or discount on the fuel excise. But how is that going to convince people to throw out a first-term government? And you mentioned the nuclear policy. It was a point of differentiation, but it doesn't come in until the 2030s if they won. And they ran away from that policy throughout the campaign. They were too scared to articulate their position because there were attacks which they should have expected. Of course there were going to be attacks.
Well, I think unconvincing is the word that sort of springs to mind for me, because in the end, when they looked to be in doubt, they sort of copied what the ALP had done or did a version of the ALP. And at the same time, they sort of alienated certain sections of the community. They weren't a choice. They weren't doing anything different and they weren't doing anything better. It looked like a campaign where they really were doing it on the run and they really didn't know what they were striving to do.
Now, to an interesting piece in the Australian Financial Review by Tricia Jha on the woes facing the Liberal Party, she writes about the error of thinking that to appeal to women, to appeal to professionals and millennials, the Liberals must change or compromise their values. She writes, tax policies that encourage growth, housing policies that enable choice, immigration policies that contribute to Australia's prosperity, and a disciplined approach to public spending that contains ballooning debt for the next generation should be bread and butter issues for Liberals, and one that can have cut through with all demographics. She makes an excellent point there, because I think the easy thing to do, which is what we're hearing now from all the grifters and the like, is they are wanting to push through their pet projects. So they want to have gender quotas. They want to essentially turn the Liberal Party into Labor.
Yes.
We already have a Labor Party. If people want to vote for Labor, they vote for Labor. Give them a choice. But the point made in this AFR piece, I think, is spot on. Women and millennials, they're not some weird demographic. If you give them sound policies, it will appeal to them as it appeals to every other demographic.
Well, it was women in those marginal seats, in the outer suburbs of the capital cities that they really had to win over. And they sort of lost them from day one virtually, or literally, with their working from home policy, which basically said a lot of these women were working from home to save money because they're in a cost of living crisis. They were making ends meet. And to sort of come in and basically have this policy that alienates them from the outset, that's when the election was lost, basically. And it's easy to say that after the event. But they never got that back. And it was the same with young people and indeed for all taxpayers. I mean, the Coalition's tax policy was costlier to the average taxpayer than the ALP's. I mean, what do they believe in? What do they stand for?
Well, we'll wait and see, because I think it's going to be crucial, the next leader of the Liberal Party. If they go the wrong way with that, then they can have many more years of pain. The rebuild needs to start and needs to start very quickly. Patrick Carlyon, thanks for your time.